2020, no doubt, an extremely challenging year. Would you say that the worst of the crisis is behind us now?
I would say from a cash burn point of view, yes. You've seen that in the first half of 2020, there was a significant cash consumption within Airbus. We've turned that around with significantly more than 5 billion of cash generated in the second half. And as we've guided, we want to break even on free cash flow before M&A and customer financing. So yes, I confirm. I think the worst is behind us. However, the market is still very volatile, especially in the current environment. The visibility is low, and we are to some degree also dependent on the recovery when vaccines are spreading in the second half of the year and in the summer season.
Dominik, can I ask you about the outlook you gave? So you mentioned that you're looking at having the same number of commercial aircraft deliveries in 2021 than in 2020, so I'll be at around 566 planes. But there's some confusion because you also announced a ramp up of your production coming into the second half of this year. So people are struggling to square up how you ramp up production, but will you still keep deliveries at the same level? Can you clarify this for us?
Well, as the ambiguity is quite high still and the visibility is low, we want to really be prepared for all kinds of scenarios. Also, if possible, and if there are opportunities, we want to capitalize on them. So that explains the delta here. Also, let's not forget that the kind of mild ramps we have earmarked for the second half of the year are very much for supporting deliveries in 2022 rather than 2021.
You've been working very hard this year to try to defer some of those orders and some of those deliveries with the airline. You've been in negotiations. Now that we see that the outlook seems still very uncertain because of these variants, the slow rollout of the vaccine, some saying maybe this summer will be just completely counted out for some of these airlines. So how are your negotiations going with some of these airlines? Are you concerned that you might see some cancellations coming through into the first half of this year?
So if we talk about cancellation, I just want to remind you that the number of cancellations we suffered in 2020 was actually very moderate, especially on the A320 family. Our customers are still very interested in preserving their delivery slots. Sure, there is a discussion about rephasing certain deliveries to generate a better fit between the cash needs of our airline customers and our deliveries, which of course would result in payments upon delivery. But I think we have brought the bulk of that behind ourselves. There might be the one or the other fine-tuning on that front required. But in general terms, I think with the guidance we've given, we feel confident that the 566, which was the kind of delivery performance of last year, can be reached again. And that's really the least we can do, we think.
But looking at the numbers, I can see that Airbus took off about 100 billion euros, or about 20% of the value of its unfulfilled order book. What is your level of concern about the ability of these airlines to actually fulfill on their promises to buy the aircraft?
First, I think it's important to stress that the number you refer to are based in euros. We had a very strong depreciation of the US dollar, and of course the commercial aircraft backlog is dollar denominated. And also I have to stress that we had a pretty good delivery performance if you compare ourselves to our competition. And of course delivery is also reducing the backlog. If you really look at what is cancellations and what we call recoverability issues, i.e. a lower likelihood of delivering aircraft, that only represents about 10% of the backlog value in US dollars, and I think extremely favorably to our competition. Going forward, we have to be vigilant. There might be more discussions with customers, but in general terms, we have of course scrubbed all the backlog to come to the most solid assessment we can have and have confidence in the numbers we have provided you with.
Facing any delays in your supply chain, and this has been a feature of the pandemic across every single industry. I just wonder if it's also showing up for Airbus as well.
Suppliers are crucial in the current environment, and we have installed what we call a supplier watchtower to really work hand in hand with each of them to make sure that in the current context they deliver at the right rate and also, even more importantly, at the right quality. And on top of that, we need to prepare for the market if and when it's recovering. I think it's a question of really timing as opposed to if. And from that perspective, we also need to make sure that we monitor the financial stability of suppliers and ensure that when the ramp is coming, we have also the parts we need to build the aircraft. There is about 500,000 parts per aircraft, And we need each of these parts to make sure that the ramp is really happening later on.